All right, so let's move on now to the main program part of the evening. So we have Stephen Wagner of the San Francisco Artists Network, who is a very accomplished artist, a curator, educator, and more. He spent the last 2 decades striving to raise art awareness through creating new art education programs, teaching art education techniques and art classes, advocating for the art. He is the managing partner at Arc Galleries and Studios in San Francisco, and he has been running the San Francisco Artists Network for over 15 years, offering programs centered around the professional development for artists. He has actively participated in SFAN, the San Francisco Open Studios, on the planning committee, and he was the program development coordinator for the San Diego Art Institute and a member of the Southern California Museum Council. He really encourages other artists to commit to their work and helps them take the steps necessary for becoming successful. And he does a lot of guest speaking on professional development for artists, at art organizations throughout California. So I'm looking forward to his talk tonight on some around the business of art, but around creating a body of work. So I will hand it over to you, Stephen.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me to make the presentation this evening for your organization. I'm Stephen.C.Wagner, and my mother was a professional artist and owned an art gallery. So when I was 6 years old, I took my first art class at the Whitty Museum at San Antonio, Texas, where I grew up. And I was making art ever since. By the time I was in junior high school, I had a private painting tutor, and I was showing my artwork in outdoor art fairs, coffee houses, and galleries. So thanks to my mother, I had a very early start in the art world, and I also have a BFA in painting and graphic communication. So I lived in San Diego for quite some time before moving to San Francisco, and I was the program development coordinator for all the education programs for the San Diego Art Institute, both for adults and for children. And we had a program for professional development programs, and I ran that, and I gave most of the lectures. I also had guest speakers come in. And so what I'm doing now kind of began at that point. So I've been in San Francisco now for over 15 years, and I run the San Francisco Artists Network. We do professional development programs for artists, which includes lectures, portfolio reviews where artists meet with gallerists and get feedback on their artwork, and one-on-one consulting with artists and different programs like that. I am the managing partner of Arc Gallery and Studios. So we have an 8,000 square foot building south of Market in San Francisco. We have 10 artist studios, and we have a 1,000 square foot art gallery, a project gallery, and a solo exhibition gallery, as well as a couple art organization offices and a coffee house. So it's a mixed use art center. So I have a lot of experience as an artist, as an educator, and as a gallerist. And so one of the things that I do is I go to galleries every chance I get. And it's just my nature to visit with the gallery owners and talk to them. So I know about 50 art gallery owners throughout California, and they all know what I do. So they're constantly telling me, Stephen, when you meet with artists, tell them this, or make sure the artists know this, or tell them not to do that. So a lot of what I share comes from many gallery owners throughout California and what they share with me. So for tonight, I thought I would put together a short program with the top 3 recommendations that I get from gallerists. So I'm going to go ahead and start a slideshow here, and we'll just kind of go through these. So I'm calling this Create a Quality Body of Work. So I always judge the quality of work by, would a gallery choose this body of work for representation? So that's one of the things that I look at for quality work. So let me get my thing there. So, just want to note that all the suggestions and tips are my opinions from years of experience as an artist and gallerist, as well as from input from and feedback from other art professionals, such as gallery owners and art organizations. And there's no one way to do anything. So, you may choose to do things in a different way if they are best for you and your particular situation. So, the first thing that I want to share is when I ask gallerists, what are you looking for in artists that you want to represent in your gallery? They say, we're looking for a signature style. So, what is a signature style? It is one that is instantly recognizable as your own. When somebody sees one of your works of art, they automatically know who created it. So, a gallerist wants artists that when somebody comes into their gallery, they go, oh, that's a piece by Stephen.C.Wagner. I recognize him. So an artist with a signature style, like any brand, sets them apart and makes them instantly memorable and recognizable. And your signature style is like a solemn promise. It's a promise to your trusted buyer. You're telling them what they can expect from you now and in the future. So how do you develop a signature style? So these are some suggestions that I have. Look at what you are enjoying. When I ask gallerists, what tips do you have for emerging artists? One of the things they say is do what you love, do what you have a passion for. So look at what you enjoy creating. Look at what subject matter you have a passion for as well. Because if you create a signature style, you're going to be working on this and exploring this subject for quite some time, most likely. So make sure that this is something that you really care about, that you have a passion for. And look at what you are good at. Select a signature style that you feel comfortable with the techniques. So are you good at painting or printmaking? And what specific techniques have you really mastered and you want to move forward with that? You should choose a signature style that you will never get bored with so that you really enjoy doing this technique or this process. And look at what is selling. So people must be willing to buy what you create. So also ensure that there is a demand for your signature style. So just, look around at galleries and what other people are doing and art fairs and art shows and see what is selling to see where you fit in there. You want to ensure there is enough variety in your subject matter and signature style. So if you're going to explore something, a lot of artists explore a variety of different aspects of it. So if you're going to explore something that's really narrow, it's going to be more challenging to expand and keep going in that. When you create within a signature style, you cut out all the figuring out time, so you can create a lot more artwork for sale in less time. So I know this from my own experience because I love to experiment and explore and try new things. And when I do, it usually takes me 2 to 4 months to really figure out what I'm doing, the new technique, the new look, the new style, and I might make 50 or 100 pieces in my collages before I get to the point where this is it. This is what I want this series to be. So I have to refigure it out every time. So if you develop a signature style and you stick within that, you've already figured it out. So you can create more artwork for sale in less time because you already mastered how it all comes together. And so it's actually easier for you to make the pieces. When you create works that are similar, you're getting a lot of practice in the techniques. We all know that practice makes perfect. So even though you can create your artwork quicker, you're also able to make them look better. So the more pieces you make within this signature style, the better you get and the higher quality the artwork is. Okay, the second thing that gallerists tell me is they're looking for a cohesive body of work. So that is something that's really important to them. So they're looking for a body of work that is consistent and makes a strong statement. So cohesive can include subject matter, composition, style, technique, scale, size, shape, medium, presentation, or framing. So there's an artist in San Diego, and he did landscapes. He also was a teacher. but all his landscapes were vertical. So they tall and narrow. And so the sky was, and the horizon was about a third of the way down, and then the land was the bottom 2/3. And it was really a unique presentation and composition, and you could tell his work. You'd walk into a gallery and you could tell what his work was immediately. There's an artist in LA who does artwork that's kind of like the masters with the black background and shiny um, varnish finish and the bright white highlights on shiny objects. And she frames all of hers in a red cherry wood. That's just absolutely gorgeous. And I would never recommend anybody frame their work in red, but it just makes the pieces fly and sing. And the red is part of her signature look. I, as an artist myself, almost all my work is square. So I have a signature shape that most of my work is square. So those are examples of what you can do to create a cohesive body of work. You also must have a sufficient number of pieces. So when I ask gallerists, when you're looking at a body of work, how many pieces do you want to see? They say, well, we want to see a series that has maybe 10 to 20 pieces. 10 is enough pieces to show that I've mastered this technique and every piece I'm doing is good quality. And 20 shows that even better. So if you're going to create a new series, 10 to 20 pieces minimum. The other thing is to think about how many places do you want to be showing and selling your work? Do you want to be in 5 galleries? Each gallery may want 5 of your pieces. So right then, you know you need to have at least 25 pieces to be out. And if they sell, they want to replace them. So you probably need another 15 or 20 pieces to replace those. So you have to think about having a sufficient number of pieces. Gallerists who visit artist studios and see that they have a very limited number of pieces will choose not to represent them, because the whole point is that they want to sell their work again and again and again. Okay, so they're also looking for art that communicates and make a strong statement. So an artist statement is really important to gallerists. So they want to be able to communicate with their potential purchasers and tell them the artist was interested in doing this, they're exploring that, this is why they choose this. They want to be able to explain what the artist is doing and what the artist is communicating and what the artist statement is. So they're looking for art that communicates and makes a strong statement. So that's really important to them as well. So another thing that gallerists share is when they look at your artwork, they look at your body of work, they want it to be organized in series. Okay, so I use the example of nature. So let's just make this up. So I'm an artist that explores nature, and specifically within nature, I'm going to explore movement. So I'll do different series. I'll do a series of air, and on that air and movement in air, well, what is that? Let's call that clouds. So I'll explore clouds. And then I'll do water. So what am I going to explore? Movement in water. I'm going to explore waterfalls. So I'll do another series of pieces all about waterfalls and the beauty of the movement of the water. And then I'll do another series maybe of land. And that, let's say that will be mudslides, which can be devastating, but also great textures and colors and things like that. So those are things that I pick a theme and then I do variations on that theme. So gallerists are looking for artists that work in series and organize it. A successful series should allow each individual artist to be able to stand on its own, yet simultaneously relate to the rest of the other works in some manner. So each series is a complete series, but it relates to the other series as well. The ability to focus and stay on track is critical to making a series of artwork that work together. So your mindset is just as important in developing a series as your physical actions to create the series as well. It's helpful to establish a list of rules for all your series that provide a structure that you can consistently follow and sustain for a long period of time. So you can write down what the list of rules are and make sure that you can stick to them before from the beginning to the end of the series. The rules can create both conceptual and visual cohesion for series overall. So one of the things that I do is I'll take a sheet of paper, I'll write out my rules, I'll draw some little sketches and come up with some fun, layouts of how I want the pieces all to be laid out. I want them all to be square. I want them all to use discarded paper. I want to use the following colors: tan, brown, and red. And I kind of establish the rules. So when you're working and experimenting, you really want to go and try everything. And so if you're going to work in the series, you want to try to focus. So it's helpful to write a list of rules. And then the other thing that gallerists share with me is how important the presentation and quality is. And I know this as a gallerist myself. So when it comes to presentation, you must have pride in your work. Any work you put out into the world will become your mark. So you want to make sure everything you intend to sell is in perfect condition and ready to be represented. So think of yourself as a brand and always use the best materials that you can acquire. So when I take in art for our exhibitions, there's very rarely an exhibition at our gallery that there's not artwork that we have to turn down. The artwork, well, it might come in and the frame is damaged, or the glass is scratched, or the mat is soiled, or the mat is crooked. There might be something wrong with the presentation. The artwork itself is gorgeous and beautiful, but there's something wrong with the presentation. And because we're a professional gallery, we have to reject it. So I'm amazed at how many artists bring in artwork that is not presented in the best manner possible. So for each piece that you create, there are several elements of presentation you should consider for showing both in person and online. So always wire your art for hanging or have the appropriate base for a sculpture. So again, I can tell you almost every exhibition that we have at our gallery for the last 11 years, that artists bring in artwork and there's no hanging method. And so we got to the point that we just reject the piece. I'm sorry, if we can't hang it, we can't include it in the exhibition. You're welcome to take this home and wire it and bring it back before the end of the day when we start doing the installation. So it's really important to have your work ready to hang. And for unframed artwork, you want to always finish your edges. So you want to make it as clean and professional as possible. And make sure there are no flaws or damage to the frames, mats, glass, etc. You want to sign every piece. The signature is like, I finished this piece, it's completed, I've signed it, it's done. It's the artist's approval. And take high quality images. So when you put your artwork on your website, you have the best quality images for people to see. And a lot of artists have started to write a short description of each piece that they make. So they might say, you know, in this piece I chose to include a yellow pipe because my grandfather smoked a pipe like this that reminds me of such and such. And just a little insight into the piece and the motivation in the piece. So these are things that I have found that gallerists make a lot of good, recommendations to artists of how to better present your work and to make sure that your work is high quality. So if you would like me to email you with a PDF file handout of this program, you can email me a request to do so at Stephen5W@sbcglobal.net. And so if you send me an email tonight, I'll reply to you tomorrow and I'll attach the PDF file of this program. And just to let you know, that I also do programs online via Zoom, and they're basically every other Monday. And so the next program is Articulate, Writing Your Artist Statement, which is Monday, May 17th. And then in June, we have Get Your Shit Together, a basic game plan for your artist career. Then I pick up programs again in August with What Sells, Creating a Saleable Body of Work. The Price is Right, pricing your artwork, and Talk the Talk, writing and talking and writing about your artwork. So these are all $25. There are 2-hour programs online via Zoom, and so you can go to the SF Artist Network and register in advance for programs like that. I also do affordable one-on-one consultations via Zoom. So I provide artists with online ways to meet so we can develop strategies, goals, and action plans. And I charge $99 for a 1-hour session online via Zoom. So you can register for any of these programs at the SF Artist Network website. And also, just to let you know, on that website, I've done a lot of homework for all of you artists. There's a resource page, and it lists all the San Francisco galleries. It lists the Bay Area art centers and art organizations. It lists online art supplies. It lists resources for printing online, for postcards and things like that. So I've listed a ton of resources for artists on the Artist Network website. I also have a Call for Artists page. If you enter in calls for artists in Google, the San Francisco Artist Network Call for Artists page is one of the first pages that pop up. So people from all over the country, and especially all over California, contact us to add calls for artists notices on our website. So if you're looking for national juried exhibitions or exhibition opportunities in the Bay Area, you can go to the Call for Artists page on the SF Artist Network website. So I also am willing to answer any questions that you have now. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up for questions. So if you have any questions about the topic that we just talked about, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And so I believe one of the hosts is going to read any of the questions in the chat room that you might have.
Yeah. If anybody would like, you can post any questions you have in that chat room. One question I did have is, are there common mistakes that should be avoided? Like, you've mentioned a few, but are there things you should keep in mind?
So this was the most amazing thing to me. Is my first solo show, I delivered the artwork to the gallery, and they said, and I had a delivery record printed out with all the description and everything in, listed that I was delivering, and they said, "This is all the work?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Oh my God, this is the first time we've ever had an exhibition where the artist delivered all the pieces all at the same time. We didn't have to get in our truck the day of the opening and go pick it up." And I was amazed. So that's one thing that I hear from gallerists again and again, is that artists don't deliver the full selection for their exhibition on time, or they'll deliver the work and it's wet. And I've had that at our gallery, and I've ruined pants and shirts because I pick up a piece of artwork to install and it's wet and I get paint on my hands and then it gets on my clothes. So please deliver all your artwork complete and all on time, and make sure that it is dry and not wet. So that's something that is just amazing to me, that is pretty common to gallerists.
Wow. Sorry, that just amazes me.
So another thing is, put your name on the piece and the title of the piece. So on the back, have the artist's name and the title. So artists might bring in 5 pieces for an exhibition at our gallery, and they don't put the title on the back, and now I don't know which is which, and I don't know how to match up the wall labels. So that's something that's pretty simple that makes it really easy for the gallerists.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would. Alka, do you have Stephen's email address to receive the PDF of the presentation? We can put it in the.
Yeah, I've already put it in the.
It's already in there? Okay, if you could repost it as well, get it
Yeah,
farther
sure.
down in the chat. Okay, and there's a few more questions here. How many days a week or hours do you create your art?
That varies. I compartmentalize my life. So because I'm a gallerist, an educator, and an artist, I find it's easier to spend maybe 2 months concentrating on my artwork and try to work every day. And then I might switch in the next month. I'll concentrate on my education programs and writing up outlines and doing all the emails and promoting that. And as a gallerist, we have a gallery schedule. So I try to plan out the schedule way in advance. So I may need to take a week to just concentrate on the gallery. So it varies according to what I'm doing. But one of the first things I did as a young artist was I started keeping a journal. And each day I'd go into the studio and I'd turn the page and I'd write notes. So as I kept working, I mix, uh, some colors together to make a certain blue. And I learned that, the 2 months later, I'd want to make that blue again. And if I didn't write down how I mixed it up, I wouldn't remember how to do it. So I make notes on how I mix the colors or any ideas that popped in my head. But I kept track of my hours. And then I tally it every week. And then every month I would look at the tally and look at the hours. And at one point I was spending maybe 8 hours a week on my artwork, which is definitely not enough. So I immediately said, okay, I've got to double my time. So by keeping track of your hours, you can gauge, are you doing enough time? Do you need to increase it? And you might need to be more disciplined and maybe cut out going to dinners or movies or watching streaming Netflix or something like that. And so keeping track of your time, I found was a really good tool that helped me out.
Cool. That's great advice. And another question. If a piece is delivered without a frame, is gaffer's tape acceptable to finish the edges?
No, just taping. Are you talking about like a stretched canvas? Is that what they're referring to?
Dennis, did you want to unmute and clarify? Yes, stretch canvas.
Okay, so most of the stretch canvas pieces that we have in our gallery, the artists are either leaving it raw or they're painting it. They'll paint it black or paint it gray or paint it white. We want to make sure that there's no string hanging off, there's no staples seen. So the thing about tape is over time, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, that tape, the adhesive will start to disintegrate and the tape will start to fall off. So I prefer not to have tape to finish off stretched canvases, and it's better to paint the edges.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. They paint both in two different styles, like a realistic or impressionistic. Can both be submitted to the same show or a solo show?
So, I talked about series, and usually most gallerists will pick one series. If they're going to be including you in an exhibition or give you a solo show, they usually pick one series. And again, that's one reason why I brought up the series tonight, is that's really an important thing to gallerists, is that the body of work is cohesive within the series. It all relates to itself. So usually if you're doing two different types of techniques or two different types of subject matter, the gallerists don't really respond to that. And I've heard some gallerists, when they go and look at an artist's website and they see that they're doing multiple things, they're going, well, how can they be good at any one thing if they do so many different things? So the more you expand and do a variety of different techniques or styles, the more challenging it is for the gallerist to embrace that.
Okay. And lots of people paint or draw off of ideas or pictures they see from online sources. Can these be considered original and saleable?
That's a good question. I actually had a friend that painted horses down in Southern California, and she would paint from photographs. And so there was a winner of one of the, I think of the Kentucky Derby, and she wanted to paint that horse. So she found a photo of that and she contacted the owner of the horse to get permission. And then there was a really important society woman in Southern California that had a prized horse, and she wanted to paint that as well. And she contacted the woman to ask her, and she got permission. But there was another person that she wanted to paint the horse, and the person said, no, you can't paint this. But if you'd like to, you have to pay me. So he required her to pay him for the rights to use the photograph of his horse. But these were all horses and people that were relatively well known, that were famous. So if you're going to paint Marilyn Monroe, her estate may come after you. From my understanding is, if it's something that you're going to paint, if it's obscure, if it's not relatively known, if it's not a famous subject matter or famous photographer, then there's not really that much problem with that. But if you're going to try to tackle something that's really well known, it's best to get it permission in advance and maybe even pay a royalty for it. There's no one answer to that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and we won't go down the route of how close is too close versus how have you changed it into your own.
So, and also, I have an attorney in Southern California that I work with. And when I first started in California, and I met with his associate that deals with trademarks and copyrights, and he basically said, as a collage artist myself, if you want to put the McDonald's arches in your piece, if it's an original piece, it's one of a kind, and you place the arches in there, or let's say Mickey Mouse, and it's an original piece, there's no problem. But if you do a piece and then you make prints of it and you sell prints of it, once you make multiples of that icon, then you're breaking their copyright. So as long as it's an original, then there's no problem. But once it's a photograph that's printed many times, or a digital print of the same piece, or it's reproduced multiple times, then there's a problem with that. And I found that very interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. Okay. So another question. I know my art is saleable, but how do I know if it's scalable for a larger audience?
Okay, so I'm not sure what scalable for a larger audience means. I do a program that's coming up this summer called What Sells, and it's 2 hours about how to make decisions in your art for things that will make it more saleable. Things like how you frame it, how you sign it, how you present it, what size, and things like that. So it's hard to answer your question when there's basically 2 hours worth of answers that I have for that. So if you want to sign up for What Sells coming up in the summer, then you'll get a complete answer to your question.
Okay, that's a fair enough answer. So here's another question. Do galleries prefer or strongly dislike, which way would it go, a certain style of ground? For example, it says deep gallery wrap painting versus 3/4 inch canvases, or aluminum panel not liked. Is there any type of consistent?
So if you're talking about paintings, they need to be on a canvas that's substantial, that's thick, that's deep, that's something like museum quality. If you come in with an artwork that's really thin, maybe an inch or inch and a half depth canvas, then it seems light, it seems amateurish. So having like a 2 3/4 or a 3-inch canvas depth minimum is really important. So the depth is really important to the gallerist. So if you're going to work with cradled panels, if you're doing little 6 inches, you can do a 1-inch cradled panel or a 1/2-inch cradled panel. But if you're going to do 12 by 12 or 24 by 24, it needs to be 2 inches, 3 inches, needs to be deeper. So that gives it a presence, a weight, its substance. It gives it importance that it's deeper. So that's important. The other thing with photographs, it's become very common to have photographs print on aluminum, on metal, and it's very light, it's very thin. It's usually have a backing that floats off the wall. And for example, there's a gallerist that I know in San Diego, and he's done photography shows, and he shares with me that 80% of his photos that he sells are printed on metal. So that's become very embraced by the public and by galleries. It's very common for people to choose a photo that's to purchase that is printed on metal. Okay, and I mentioned cradle panels. So like I do mixed media collage, so I work on cradle panels also. So that a cradle panel is a great way to present your work without having it framed.
Okay, just a clarification on that. It's metal that is floating, right?
So yeah, usually there's I'm not sure what they call it. It's two levels of metal that float it off from the wall. So usually it's floating at least an inch off the wall, and you don't see this support behind it.
Right. I think I know what you mean. Now I can picture that one now. So we have one more question here. In your workshop on pricing artwork, do you cover the different mediums such as watercolor, color pencil, acrylic, and I'll throw in there mixed media or textile or anything like that?
So no, I don't get into individual media, but I go into all the different considerations that one should make in pricing their work, increasing their prices, whether you should discount your work, the gallery relationship and what the pricing for galleries is. So it goes more beyond just how to price your work, but all the practices involved in pricing your work as well.
Okay. And here's a question. One last question. We'll do one last question and then we'll be done. What is the best way to approach a gallery?
Okay, so number one is you go to their website and look at their submission policy. And they should have somewhere on their website. You can contact us by emailing us with a link to your website, or email us and attach your CV and 5 images of your work or something like that. But I find that 90% of the galleries, it's through an email with a link to your website. And again, I do a lecture, a 2-hour lecture on how to approach art galleries, all the details about that. But in writing your email, one of the things that the gallerists tell me is they get emails every day from artists who don't know who they are. So like a plein air gallery in Laguna Beach receives an email from an artist that does graphite life drawing. Well, a plein air gallery would never, ever show that work. So they're demonstrating, the artist is demonstrating, I don't know who you are, I don't care who you are, I'm sending this blindly. And so it's just automatically rejected. So one of the first things that I recommend is when you're writing your email, you say, I visited your gallery in Laguna Beach last week while in Southern California and was impressed with the quality of your art selection of artists, or something like that. So you acknowledge you know who they are. And in the COVID world, you might say, I visited your website and I was impressed with the artists that you represent or something. But you acknowledge you know who they are and give them a little compliment. And then I just tell them just a little bit about who I am as an artist. So let's just say I'm a photographer. So I'm a photographer in Newport Beach, and I explore movement in nature through clouds and waterfalls. And then you might highlight a couple things about your career. So you might say that my artwork is included in the Riverside Art Museum permanent collection, and I won first place at the Del Mar State Fair in 2019. So you highlight a couple things, and then you just say, I invite you to visit my website at the following link. And then there's the hot link that they click on the link and they go to your website. And then you end by, and I'd be happy to meet with you in the gallery, or if you'd like to schedule a studio visit, I'm located in such and such city. So you give them some actions. So that's a great first way to contact a gallerist.
Those are fantastic ways. Now you're going to get a bunch of emails. What about, so carrying on from that to approaching galleries, is there any merit to those vanity catalogs that want to collect your work and send it to multiple?
So there's no one way to do things, but my rule of thumb is if you have to pay for it, don't do it. Because they're more concerned about making money off of artists than giving artists a boost in their career.
Interesting.
So they look nice.
My own heart. Do it for
free.
Look
nice on your counter in your studio, or do you give them out to clients? So, they serve a purpose, but they're not necessarily going to get you into the gallery. The gallerist, what they're going to look for is your artwork and your quality of your work, and then your commitment to being an artist and your participation in the art world. That you've taken classes, that you're a member of art organizations, and that you teach, or that you want to demonstrate you're active, you're serious about your art, you're professional.
Excellent. Those are wonderful tips. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that one point that Dennis had about the gaffer tape and behind. He was just thinking for the length of time of the show that it would be taken off so somebody could could frame their own artwork after, that it wouldn't be a permanent.
So somebody might purchase that, take it home and hang it on the wall, and they may not take the tape off.
Right.
So when it leaves the gallery, it should be ready for presentation. It should be perfect. It should be the best way. And it should be, they can frame it later if they want, but it should be ready to hang unframed if it's going to be presented as hanging in the gallery.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you so much. I think we've got to the end of all of our questions. That was wonderful. I think you've got the most questions ever so far.
Actually, this is my favorite part of doing the programs is the questions and answers. So I like talking to the artists and answering your questions and helping you out specifically. So thank you so much for having me this evening, and I hope everybody enjoyed it and learned some new things and got some good suggestions and tips that I've shared from other gallerists that I know.
Thank you very much. It was very informative.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen.
Take care.
Bye-bye.